The term canon immigrant is an interesting term. So, a canon immigrant is a character who was originally created for an outside medium and was popular enough to be integrated to the mainstream medium. So, a few examples of canon immigrants include, for starters, Harley Quinn. Batman, a comic book medium, had a TV show back in the 90s called Batman the Animated Series. That's what introduced Harley Quinn. She was working with the Joker. She became so popular that later in the 90s, she was featured in the comic books. So, and then since there, she's gotten to be in the movies and video games, and the shows were being made mainstream canon for her character. Harley Quinn is a shining example of canon immigration. So other popular DC characters that got this include Terry McGinnis from Batman Beyond. So Batman Beyond was a TV show from the late 90s, early 2000s, and Terry became so popular that I believe by the 2010s, he got his own comic books. Music Meister appeared in Batman Brave and the Bold. I believe he got his own comics in the early 2020s, despite being introduced so many years before. But it was kind of a better late than never thing. And honestly, another example would be Jimmy Olsen, because back in the 40s, he was just introduced into a radio show, and then he was integrated into the comics a little while later. I could be wrong. Some of the stuff is a little iffy, but I believe this radio show actually introduced a lot of Superman lore, so it's kind of interesting. So, and then Marvel has examples of this. X-23 appeared in X-Men Evolution for the first time, and then a year later, she got her own comic franchise. So everyone knows most people know that X-23 is Wolverine's clone, and they kept that story into the comics and even to the movie Logan. It's kind of cool when I see this type of stuff happen. You got like some of it's exciting, like Firestar from Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends, she was introduced, but just because the showrunners didn't have permission to use the Human Torch. She was created because they couldn't use Johnny, and it created like a great thing in the end because Angel is a good character in her own right. Her friendship with Spider-Man and Iceman is actually really nice. I like the dynamic that Angel, Peter, and Bobby have in the comic books and in the TV show. So it all worked out in the end, and we still got comics of Johnny, Bobby, and Peter just doing their own thing. So everything wins. And you have some that, for me, aren't as exciting, like Phil Coulson, who appeared in the MCU movies. Like, he was in the first Iron Man, he was in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Years later, they put him into the comic books, so yeah. I guess some people found this. I guess if you like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., then yeah, you were really excited to see it. So I'm not knocking on that. Other comics that have had this include Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. The character Mona Lisa was introduced into the 80s show, and she was brought into the comics sometime later. But she got to be in the games and whatnot. Yeah. Basically, the point is, Mona Lisa is an example of a canon immigrant in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. So, mangas had this as well. Dragon Ball is the biggest one because, let's take Broly. Broly Legendary Super Saiyan came out in the 90s. It was a really popular movie, and it could have fit into the canon they wanted it to. It took place during the 10-day wait for the Cell games, so they could have probably squeezed that in. So Broly went from being this power-hungry warrior to being a gentle giant, so to speak. It is. I don't think the reboot Broly is bad. I just do find it interesting they went this route, but they made it work, at least. And it wasn't just Broly. Bardock was originally from the story Bardock, father of Goku. They changed the story a little for the Dragon Ball Minus manga and Dragon Ball Super movie, and that Bardock went from being this guy who was constantly predicting the future to being a guy who had a really bad feeling, and after hearing evidence, or at least rumors, speculation about what Frieza's doing, he's like, yeah, I gotta get my kid out of here. So, and I know that led to a bit of a retcon, because Raditz in the show is like, Kakarot, you were sent here as a baby to conquer this planet. Why haven't you conquered this planet? Raditz thinks that. He doesn't know the full story. Even in the movie, he says, oh, I think Mom sent them off planet, but I really don't care. So it's a retcon, but it didn't create a loophole or anything. Regardless, Bardock is a canon immigrant. And also, other manga that have done this include Zatch Bell. They introduced his character Hyde. Like, Hyde was introduced in a few episodes. I really did not like Hyde's introduction. It was kind of forced in. I think they introduced the Homamoto thing too early. They could have built it up a little. So if they're going to make any anime exclusive character canon, they should have used Naya and Shion. Zatch Bell's done that. I believe Naruto's done that. I can't really recall the specific details, but I heard One Piece does it. I don't know enough about One Piece to really go into it, but I've heard it has done it. So, and actually going back to Dragon Ball, I almost forgot. Angel 21 is technically canon immigrant. She was created for Dragon Ball Fighters, and then she was introduced into Dragon Ball Superhero, which is canon, written by Toriyama, and they elaborated her backstory that her name was Vomi, and they kept the whole thing about her being Dr. Giro's wife and the mother of Angel 16, or rather, mother of the man that Angel 16 was modeled after. So that was like a more recent example. And so yeah, that's what makes the canon immigration thing interesting, because you're bringing in characters from different medium and giving them a chance to like shine outside the medium. So in fact, even My Little Pony did this to an extent, where they talk about T-Rex father who was introduced version in the comics. There was probably some other stuff, I just can't remember every single thing. And there are things that people want to see with canon immigration. So take Mortal Kombat. When the first Mortal Kombat movie came out in the 90s, people wanted Art Lean, a character who was intended to be fodder. They loved him so much, they want him to be canon. That'd be great to see Art Lee become a canon character at the main Mortal Kombat games. As soon as the Mortal Kombat games kind of clean themselves up, because they've got issues. But a lot of video games have issues these days. But Art Lean could become canon if they ever wanted to. I know there's the character Cole Young. My problem with Cole Young in the 2021 Mortal Kombat movie, they should not have made him a main character. He felt like this weird self-insert. They just made him like an extra character, like they did in the sequel. Then it'd be better. Sequel's kind of new, so I won't talk about too much what happened to Cole Young in that movie. But yeah, I can imagine some people rolling their eyes after me mentioning the sequel with Cole Young. Resident Evil's had like movies and stuff. I do not like the Resident Evil movies at all, but I do find it interesting that they have yet to introduce the main character from the movies into the games in any way. Maybe that's, but yeah, the Resident Evil movies are too well loved, so I think that's probably why. Then again, the Resident Evil movies introduced that whole thing about the broom with the lasers coming at you, so yeah, the movies did have some influence on the games. People will love to see this with Sonic the Hedgehog. Like, take Sally Acorn. People have been waiting forever to see Sally Acorn like return in some way, whether they're going to put her in the IDW comics or bring it to the games. And she's appeared in Sonic Spinball, so Sally has appeared in the games at least once, and Sonic Spinball is canon. So people want to see Cosmo from Sonic X or anyone else from that show appear. People waiting to see Styx return, Manic and Sonia from Sonic Underground. All these characters that people waiting to see like return. Even kind of think of it, at some point, I think even the Mario movies are gonna influence the Mario games before Sonic less. And Sonic has had movie influence before, because the movie introduced the whole thing about him turning electric when he runs fast, and the games have slowly introduced that. So there's some kind of integration there, but not necessarily what the fans asked for. Or there are probably fans that asked for it, just not as much as like Sally, Cosmo, and the others. Oh, and I want to mention something quickly about Star Wars. That's a bit of a weird topic at points, because Star Wars had an extended universe in the comics. A lot of it never really made it to the movies, despite it being essentially canon. Of course, once Disney took over, they removed a lot of the canon from the comics, including Luke Skywalker's wife, Mara Jade. So I feel like one of the only major integrations was the fact that Ahsoka Tano from the Clone Wars appeared in at least one of the Star Wars shows. I guess if you want to say it only counts against the movies, then the closest you have is The Mandalorian getting its own movie. But yeah, Star Wars is a bit of a weird spot. So now I'm going to say this. If you're one of those people who doesn't like anything that isn't canon, you really need to have more of an open mind, because dismissing something for being non-canon to the main medium is very short-sighted and just not worth it. Like Dragon Ball, even if most of those movies don't ever become canon, it doesn't mean they're not good. Tree of Might was still a good movie, even if Charles will never become part of the main canon. I would say Lord Slug's good, cooler, despite it's not canon, but he's still a good character. If you like Android 13, you like BoJack, anything else, you like any of the filler characters like PyCon, that's okay. You don't have. It doesn't need to be canon for you to like it. And you're saying, "Oh, we can't like this character. It's not canon." That's such a weird mindset to have, honestly. Like, what are you trying to accomplish by that? Same thing with like the Sonic. I see people say they don't care about Sally or Cosmo or anyone because they're not canon. Why do they need to be canon for you to care about them? Would it be nice to see them in canon? Sure, but it doesn't mean you can't care about them. Archie was super popular. It was never part of the main Sonic canon, and people still loved it as an alternate media. So, if you want to enjoy the MCU movies, then enjoy them. You want to enjoy, if these TV shows have characters who have yet to appear in the comics, whatever, and you still like them, don't let people tell you you can't like them. Alright? Canon is cool, but you can still like things that aren't canon. That's the whole part of being a fan. Sometimes part of being a fan means liking the what ifs, liking an alternate universe. You want to respect the main stuff, but it doesn't mean you gotta be so short-sighted about this type of thing. Like, come on, dude. Point is, this is my talk about canon and immigration. So hopefully we'll see some good stuff come out of it. But until then, I guess I'll see you later. Peace out.